Welcome to Well Since You Asked Me, the podcast where curiosity sparks conversation. I'm Lynn, your host. In this deeply moving and inspiring episode, I sit down with the remarkable Madalyn Martin, a two-time breast cancer survivor who embodies resilience, faith, and fierce determination. Madalyn shares her journey from discovering a lump in 2019, facing an unexpected second diagnosis in 2021, and enduring surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, and countless physical and emotional hurdles. Through it all, she chose to document her experience publicly, creating a support network for others and shedding light on the realities of survivorship, particularly as a Black woman. Madalyn's candid reflections remind us of the importance of community, trusting your medical team, advocating for your own care, and maintaining joy and hope, even in the face of life's toughest battles. Whether you're facing a similar journey or supporting someone that is, this conversation is a testament to the strength found in vulnerability and the power of sharing your story. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Madalyn, welcome to Well Since You Asked Me. I am beyond excited to have this conversation with you today. Your openness about your journey has been both inspiring and empowering, and you always share your story with such grace and a smile. So let's start from the beginning. Will you share with us what your journey looked like from diagnosis to treatment?
Absolutely. I'm so excited, Coretta. I'm super excited. Okie dokie. I'm trying to calm down, but I'm super, super excited to share with your listeners on today. So, as you said, my name is Madalyn Martin. I am a two-time breast cancer survivor. I am surviving breast cancer. So, the first time I was diagnosed was 2019,
Mhm.
and I felt a lump in my breast.
Mhm.
And so, um, actually, a partner found the lump in my breast, and we were like, oh, it's probably just a cyst. No big deal. Um, I go to the doctor, and she feels it as well. And she's like, hey, let's just do a biopsy,
Mhm.
right? And so, I got the biopsy, and at that time, I travel for work, and the doctor's office called, and I was in Houston Hobby Airport,
Mhm.
waiting for a connection to hop on the flight to get to Dallas. And so there are just certain things that you know.
Mhm.
And so I answer the phone, and she introduces herself and says, well, she was calling with the doctor's office. And instead of continuing the conversation, she says, oh, it sounds like you're in an airport.
Mhm.
And I said, yes, I am. I'm waiting for my flight. And she goes, oh, well, do you just want to call when you get home?
Mhm.
And at that point, Coretta, I knew I had breast cancer. I didn't know what I had, but I knew I had it. And so I told her, just tell me what I need to know now, because we need to get on this. And she said, it is breast cancer. This was on a Friday, and you need to come into our office first thing Monday morning. So I went into the office Monday morning, and um, the doctor walked in, Dr. Vishali Kent, great, phenomenal woman.
Mhm.
Biggest, brightest smile on her face. She's excited, and she goes, oh my God, you're going to be fine. If I ever get breast cancer, I want the exact same thing you have. I'm
Wow.
like, well, what do I have, right? And so she says, you have stage 0 DCIS, meaning the cancer is all in this little round lump in your breast. She's like, we're going to do a lumpectomy. You're going to be fine. No worries. So at that point, I'm 49 years old. I call my sister, and, our sisters are our best friends, right? I said, hey, I got a secret, but you
Oh,
can't tell
wow.
anybody. You can't tell mother,
Mhm.
right? She was like, okay, what? And so I said, well, I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. So she's like, oh my God, you're putting me in a really difficult
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty sneaky, but my mom's an elderly lady, right? And I didn't want to worry her. I didn't really share with my son because I didn't want him
Mm,
worried. He's in his senior year of high school. So, I have the lumpectomy. My best friend, who at that point was probably my best friend of 48 years, a former retired now police officer, my sister and my partner were there. And yeah, they finished the surgery. They took the lump out, and I'm like, take me to mother's house. So here I am all wrapped up, looking like I have just gone under the knife and anesthesia. And she opens the door and looks at my sister and she goes, what has happened to her? And my sister's like, she had breast cancer. She had surgery today. And I'm like, I'm coming here to convalesce, right? And she's like, oh my God, oh my God. So a couple of weeks later, you have to go in because when you have breast cancer, you have a lumpectomy, they always take additional tissue, right? Because they want to know if there is cancer in the margins. That's what they call it, right? And so I go into the doctor's office, and at the time of surgery, they always take more tissue. And I got there, and she said, well, uh, there was cancer in the margins. So we have a couple of options. I can go in, I can do another lumpectomy. It's your breast will be misshapen. It might have more, cancer in the margins.
mhm,
Or we can just do a mastectomy with reconstruction. We can put a breast implant there. Now, remember, I'm 49 years old. And then she says, or you can see a plastic surgeon. They'll give you a tummy tuck. They take the fat from your tummy. They'll make you another double D breast on that left side. And I will remove the breast. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm not sure my insurance will pay, for this extensive surgery. And she goes, oh, yeah, your insurance will pay. And before she got that out of her mouth, I was like, where is the plastic surgeon? You mean at 49 years old, I'm going to have a flat tummy and perky breasts? Sign me up, you know? And so,
mhm,
about a month later, I went under the knife again, and it took her all of 20 minutes or so to remove my breast. And it took the plastic surgeon and his team about another 7.5 hours to do the deep flap reconstruction. And so it was a longer recovery, but so worth it. Uh, when you are going through something like breast cancer, you have to trust your team.
sure.
And so, my oncologist was amazing. My breast care doctor is amazing. My plastic surgeon was amazing. And the team was great. And so
Mm,
that was in 2019. In June in August, I was on a beach in Mississippi in a bikini with my son. Right? So I didn't really broadcast that I had breast cancer that first time. I just kind of got through it, right? There was no radiation, there was no chemotherapy, there was no um, oral chemotherapy. It was just surgery.
mhm,
And that was easy. That was
okay.
easy. Stage zero, I'm gonna make it. I'm great. Well, 2 years later, in 2021, that same breast care doctor was looking at my breast and noticed that my keloid was bigger. So African Americans sometimes keloid
Mhm,
when there is an incision or a scar, especially if they're not injected with steroids
mhm.
at that incision. So I was like, yeah, it is getting kind of bigger. She was like, is it tender? I was like, a little bit, it's a little tender. And she's feeling around and she was like, well, I don't feel anything, but I want you to go have a sonogram. And I was like, okay. So I go and I had the sonogram in 2021 in October, Breast Care Awareness Month, right? Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so she called and she said there's a mass there. So I had to go back in and she was like, I'm gonna send you for a biopsy. And again, you can't feel anything because the mass was soft. And she said, I'm thinking it's probably just some scar tissue, but we want to be safe. So I had the biopsy. After the procedure was done, um, the doctor comes in. He says, well, it went in like butter,
Mhm.
and cancer typically doesn't act that way,
Interesting.
but cancer is tricky. And so when I was when I started going through this a second time, for some reason I just picked up the phone and the camera and I started recording.
Yeah.
Not sure why.
Mhm.
That diagnosis came back as cancer.
Mhm.
This time I was in the car, right? And True Lux is one of my favorite restaurants. And so I'm leaving South Lake, leaving True Lux, had lunch there, and the nurse says, um, sounds like you're in the car. And I'm like, okay, I have I have been in this story before. I've heard this voice. I hear the nervousness.
Mhm.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm in the car, headed home. And she's like, well, you want to call when you get home? I was like, no, ma'am. Tell me what we need to do. She's like, well, it is cancer and you need to come in. So this time, I had to be, upfront with everybody. And I told everyone that it was another diagnosis of breast cancer. I go in, so now I've been here before, right? I have been in the office where the doctor comes in with a huge smile on her face and she's happy and she's like, "You're gonna be fine." She comes in this time with a very worried look on her face. And she says, I don't know what happened. You are probably in the 3% of women that I see that
Mhm.
this happens to. So, in the same breast, a different kind of cancer occurred. So, before I was stage 0 DCIS. This time I'm stage 2 triple negative. Um, and so that started the ball of yarn. She's like, you've got to go see your oncologist. My oncologist walks in. He's totally perplexed. He's like, when she called, I was like, are you talking about Madalyn Martin? What's going on here? And he said, we're going to treat it aggressively. Again, this is why you have to trust your doctors. So
Mhm.
my oncologist was Dr. Alberto Parra, and then you have to have a community, right? So you were a part of that community of folks at my job,
Mhm.
people in my social circle, family members, and then an unexpected community on Facebook
Mhm. Interesting.
because I decided that I would share everything
Uh-huh.
because I didn't see any videos about how I would feel,
Mhm.
what this procedure was, what is it going to hurt putting it in the port? I don't know. How am I going to feel? So I just started documenting every single thing on Facebook because I figured there's a woman going through it for a second time and she thinks she's going to die.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you think you're going to die, you are going to die.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to uh, be an encouragement to those women. I
Mhm.
ended up being an encouragement to men and women and elderly people. Um, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew I wasn't going to die. I didn't have time to die.
Mhm.
I had a son, I had a family. I knew I was going to be okay, but I also knew that there were women out there who were just feeling like they had come to the end of their rainbows. And I wanted them to know that there are many, many more rainbows. So, yeah, for that second diagnosis, he treated it very aggressively because triple negative is an aggressive form of breast cancer. It grows and spreads faster, right? And so I started with very hard chemo, uh, and I had Red Devil uh, in November and December. They changed the concoction in January, and it was hard, right? It makes you sick, and you're regurgitating. You can't eat. You're trying to hydrate. You look very different. I started, my hair, of course, was gonna shed and fall out, and so I went on Facebook Live, went to the barbershop, had it cut off into a nice, cute little ball fade. And then once it started falling out, I didn't wear wigs or anything like that. It just wasn't important. The important thing was the important thing, and that was making it through this breast cancer and fighting. Um, my body was just beaten up because of the chemotherapy. And it was really, really strong. And my platelets weren't rebounding. They were staying at a very low level. And so it's not healthy for you to start chemo and then have to stop for 2 weeks because your platelets are low, then start again and then stop for 2 weeks. And so after like 3 or so weeks, 4 weeks, I hadn't had chemo in like a month, my platelets started to finally rebound. And my doctor said, okay, this is what I thought. The chemo is just too strong for you. And we're going to send you straight to surgery. So at this point, I am 51 years old, and my plastic surgeon wanted me to keep breast tissue, right? So when you have a mastectomy, you can never take all of the fat because the fat is right there with your skin on your breast. So scraping that would damage that skin on your breast. And so there's no way they can remove 100% of that fat. And so I was thinking, well, maybe that's what happened. And that's why this kind of mutated into a triple negative breast cancer diagnosis. And so I elected to have a double mastectomy because I was 51, my son was grown, I really didn't need breast. And I think your peace is more important than anything.
Mhm.
And so I didn't want to ever worry about going to get a mammogram. I didn't ever want to worry about going to get an MRI on my breast because I had dense breast tissue. And so I decided on a double mastectomy. Went into the hospital, got that done, reported out on Facebook everything that happened, and sometimes I would say, hey, this is going to be graphic. So if you don't want to see, this graphic stuff, you may want to like not look. That happened. I had radiation, and
Mhm.
that's every single day for 6 weeks, where it just burns through your body. That was like the easiest part. It wasn't painful. It was just the headache of having to go to the doctor every single day, Monday through Friday, to have the radiation. And so then I started oral chemotherapy. And so it was 12 pills a day, 2 weeks on, 1 week off. And I had complications because the medication causes your stomach to cramp. And my cramps were so severe that I passed out in the Apple store and hit my head. They had to call the ambulance. The guy at the Apple store was amazing,
Mhm.
the kindest blue-eyed guy I'd ever seen in my life. And he was like, I'm a survivor too. He just knew all the questions to ask. He was like, are you on medication? And I said, I'm on oral chemo. He said, I'm a survivor too. You're going to be just fine. You hit your head. You've been out for a minute. We've called the ambulance. Who should we call? Well, I was like, my mother. And so got her on the phone, and he was like, where should we take her? And she was like, Baylor, all of her records are there. And so just a very, very kind guy. And angels are all around, right? And he just happened to be my angel that day. So my doctor, after that, I just told him, Dr. Parra, my oncologist, I don't want to take these pills. I'm not going to do it. And he said, "Can we talk about it?" And I was like, "Sure, but I'm not going to do it." And so he's like, "Well, when does your stomach start hurting where it's unbearable?" I said, "About day 8." And so he said, "Well, this is what we'll do. 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off." And so I did that, and it kind of prolonged the time period in which I had to take them. So that was for 8 months. And I took my last chemo pill 2 years ago in May of 2025. It'll be 3 years. And you have to be 5 years out to say that you are cancer free. So I am surviving cancer and I am in remission officially. So that's my story.
Thank
But
you
you
so
got to
much
have a
for
great
sharing.
attitude. You got to have a great attitude. You have to smile through the hard times. I think I cried once, and that's when my sister had to help me to the restroom because I had back spasms. But it when you go through it, you think, wow, I can't believe I did that. I
Mm,
can't believe God carried me through that. And
mm.
it's just amazing. I look at videos of myself and I don't even recognize myself because I just had
Mhm.
tunnel vision, and I wanted to help other folks.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't want to interrupt you because it was such a compelling story. I think it's so brave of you and so gracious of you to share that because, like I say, if you can help one person, then it's all worth it telling the story, right? So
Yeah.
I do want to back up. And one of the things that I heard when you were initially diagnosed was that a partner found the lump. Now,
Hmm.
had you been doing yourself, no. And
Had
you know how
not.
many people I don't I know that I'm not good at that, and it was interesting when you brought that up. Do you, are you, after that, were you more apt to do your self examination or still like, because
Yeah. So I quite honestly, I was still like, huh.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, huh, you know,
Mhm.
uh, which is weird. And I I had to go into the doctor like every 3 months or so to my breast care doctor because of my diagnosis, right? And so, yeah, I was still so like nonchalant about doing those breast exams. I think I did it a couple of times, but I'm like, what am I feeling? Is this something or is that something? And you really need to get acquainted with your body
Yes, yeah, and I think
and
that's
your breast. And if you have a husband and your husband isn't touching you, then that's a problem because
well, it's not a
so
problem.
so many breast cancers are found by husbands and partners.
Interesting.
If your partner isn't touching you and knows your breast, then that's a problem.
That's a
You've got to, but it's a breast cancer is not a diagnosis that you get. It's the diagnosis that your family gets.
And thank you for sharing that because I had another question about that. So, from the first time, you were very selective in the people that you told. The second time, you were more forthright. And is it because of the type of cancer or what shifted?
Uh, I think what shifted in me was that I was in such a short period of time going through this
Hmm.
second time, right?
Yeah.
And it was completely different.
Yes.
It's not a reoccurrence. It was just a completely different cancer in that breast.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? I am what my doctor said. I'm in the 3% of women that this happens to. Why am I so lucky? I'm so lucky to help someone else.
Mhm. I
And
love
that's
I love I love your positive attitude. You're such a giver. You are a giver. At heart, you're a giver. You give in so many different spaces. But when you think about that, and I love your smile, you have one of the most beautiful smiles. And I know that I'm not the only person that's told you that, but you do have a beautiful smile.
thank you.
There, I want to know, were there times, and I heard you say that you cried once, but were there times where you had to either lean on your faith, your family? What were there times where you were just down, and how did you get through that?
Sure. The only time I was down was when I cried and I couldn't go to the restroom. But my faith, I mean, that's been the foundation of everything, right? And so God let me know at the very beginning I was going to be fine. So I was good with that. I didn't ring any bells. when it was over, I rang my bells before I started this thing, right? I was like, okay, okay, God, I know I'm gonna be all right, right? But I never, this is ca- fighting cancer, fighting an illness. It's a mental battle, and our minds are so powerful. Yes, you pray, but you also have to know that God has given you everything to be successful, not just in life, but in your health and in your relationships and in your parenting. And so the challenges that you feel like you're facing, they're not insurmountable. They are not. He has given us everything, and He's given us grit to fight through with like we're champions, because we are champions, right? And so I had to keep smiling because that was just in me. It was inside of me. And then when I had folks like you calling and checking in on me, when you wake up on a Saturday and your boss, Ryan, sends a picture and he shaved his head and he's like, I don't look as good as you, but here we go, you know? And it's like when you have people around you like that, I know folks who are like, they listen to every single one of my videos. You know, a church member, Sandra, she was like, okay, I have looked up and I've done some research and I'm cooking you some black eyed peas and some greens because you need iron and you need alkaline and I'm sending it over and bam, it's there. You know, Tan, hey, you need a lot of water. Boom, it's on my porch, right? Uh, and you know, Aunt Linda, she became my adopted aunt, and she would call and was like, okay, what are we praying for? I need to know specifically what we are praying for. And then she, when that chemo was beating up my body, she said, you know what? I'm gonna pray that they stop that chemo and send you straight to surgery. And it's something about people who have walked with Christ a long time. Their prayers are answered. Because she prayed that prayer, and about 3 days later, the doctor said the same thing. And so there were so many phenomenal people that I can't even name. Like, you know, Rose Gore was watching all the videos and commenting. And I mean, I can't even name all of the folks. And then people were sending me messages. So I didn't understand that people who weren't your friends could send you messages until like afterwards. And I saw like hundreds of messages. It said message request, right, on Facebook. And I go in there, and one guy said, you know, I was having a bad day. And I watched your video and I realized that I wasn't having a bad day at all. And you're so encouraging to me. And I was like, wow, I'm doing this for women, but men are being encouraged. And I remember Rose, I had done a speech at the church I grew up with in, and she was like, you handled that with a smile on your face the entire time. You were so positive. And I just feel like if you are defeated going into a battle, you can't win. So I was David and I had a Goliath that I had to slay.
I couple of things. We're almost at time, but there's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. So you were going through this right at COVID,
Yes.
and I heard you talk about your community. I heard you talk about your friends. Did that impact you in any way, and how were you able to navigate through that? You know, just having that additional thing that was impacting your ability to connect. And I know connection
Yeah.
is important for you.
Yeah, because I'm an extrovert, right? I'm an extrovert. So it wasn't hard because had it not been COVID, because I was in going through the chemo, I would have still had to isolate because people could get me sick. I couldn't get anybody else sick. So my girlfriend who lived in Atlanta, she would come in and she's like, open the blinds. I just want to look at you, you know, that kind of thing. And people, of course, saw me on Facebook. My sister who's in Arizona would FaceTime me and it's just like, I just want to look at you, you know. And so uh, it didn't really affect me because you have to, again, keep the main thing the main thing. So if
Yeah.
I know that people have the ability to make me sicker, I'm not going to trip because I have to stay in the house. I'm not going to trip out because I have to wear a mask and I have to isolate. That's just the way it goes. And it's only for a season. It's only for a season. It was from October 2021 until May of 2023. That's just a short season in this thing called life. And so I'll be 55 in June, that was a short stint. And, I feel like everyone should make sure that they're taking care of their health and they're being an advocate. Black women don't get breast cancer more often than white women,
We
but
just
when
did.
we do, we're
Mhm.
more likely to die from it. And it's because, we're diagnosed with aggressive forms of breast cancer, like triple negative breast cancer, that grows and spreads faster. And then we get diagnosed later, and the cancer's more advanced. And you know, yeah, there are systemic issues, right? The access to quality care and delays in treatment and less access to clinical trials, right? It's heartbreaking, but that's why conversations like this, Coretta, are so important. And I thank you for being brave enough to have these conversations.
Yeah, people like you that are willing to share their story. There's something, I believe that you're working on something that I don't know if you're wanting to share anything now. If not, we can always come back at some other point. But one of the things that I think is important, and I don't know if you, what I think I heard is that you were not as concerned and had educated yourself on breast cancer before it happened to you. And I wonder, did you, because you're so knowledgeable, was that your team or is that something that you took on yourself?
Um, I I had to take it on myself because I wanted to know what was going on with my body, right?
Okay.
And so, and I wanted to know the cure. When you are in the throes of treatment, it's not time to change your diet and go vegan and all that kind of stuff. You're that concerned, you do it beforehand. There are people who will give you a lot of advice, and oh, you should do this and you should do that. Chemo tears your body down. It destroys the good cells and the bad cells. So any calories, any nutrients you can get, um, you need to have. But yeah, you educate yourself on your condition.
And so I cut you off. Are you wanting to share something now or should we? I'm super
We're
excited.
It's gonna be big. It's because
Uh-huh.
you already know a little bit about it of the network, yes. But we're gonna come back and we'll have a huge conversation about that because I feel like you'll probably be an integral part of that.
I'm super excited. Well, Madeline, I appreciate you. I'm going to ask you, well, since you asked me, but before that, I want to encourage the listeners to do your self-examination, to educate yourself, to encourage your partner to touch you for many reasons, but also specifically to get to know your body because it's important. Like you said, we don't always have that as at the forefront, and it's important for Black women to take care of ourselves and advocate for ourselves. So again, thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you this question. So we just had March 14th, which is Pie Day. So are you a pie person or a cake person? And what's your favorite?
I am a cake person.
Oh, you're a cake person. Okay,
I'm
what's
a
your favorite
cake
cake?
person. And my favorite cake is German chocolate, and I am
Okay.
a snob. If the color doesn't look right, I know it's not going to taste right. I don't like dry cake. I like moist German chocolate cake. That's my number one favorite. And then my number two is a Bacardi rum cake.
That sounds
And
good.
then like a number three is like a regular pound cake or a 7-Up pound cake. But I am a cake person. I like pie, but I'm a cake person.
I like pie, and I can't, and I've been known, and I have. I can eat an entire chocolate pecan pie at Christmas, and I've done it, unfortunately, several times. It's delicious.
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
love
tea.
it.
Well,
Well,
we shouldn't eat a lot of sweets anyway. They're not good. It's not good for our
yeah.
health, but yeah.
I mean, on occasion, we can do
Yeah, on occasion.
that. Madeline, I appreciate you so much. You are my shiro. I admire you for so many different reasons. And I'm so thankful and blessed to have you in my life. And thank you for sharing your story with everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Hey.
That's a wrap for this episode of Well, Since You Asked Me. I hope this conversation left you with something to think about, something to question, or maybe even something to share. If you would like to learn more about Madalyn's journey, follow her on Facebook at Maddie Batts. That's MADDIEBATTS. I would like to thank our executive producer, John Dunson, audio and video technician, Ryan Sexton, and graphic designer, Ellen Jacobs. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, rate it, and spread the word. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep asking the questions that matter. Bye!